Hello friends, I made this for. My name is Lauren, and if this is your first time here, hi, hello, welcome. I like to talk about astrology through the tarot as a tool to give us some very real grounding imagery to come back to as we're connecting to the stars. And of course, if you have been here before, welcome back. I missed you. I love you. If you are not already, make sure to hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so you know all the information. Today I'm wearing my Happy Pluto Return shirt, which is available through my shop. Link is, of course, down below. Happy Pluto Return, my friends. We are going through it collectively, individually, in all of the ways. I am working on my series looking at the Pluto return through tarot to kind of give us some context of this major planetary transit. So if you're curious about that, of course, make sure that you are subscribed so you can see all of the info as I release it. It's a series in many parts so that it's short, simple, and to the point, because we are here to get to the heart of things, not dance around them. But with that said, today I'm going to be talking about the full moon in Virgo that is happening March 18th. So we are in the thick of it, the thick of Pisces season. Have you been crying a lot? Some people do. I have not been, oddly enough, but usually this is my very tearful time. I get semi-emotional around this time, but I am a Virgo moon, so I feel like there's something about Pisces season that just hits me a little differently, and of course I am very excited for this full moon because it's in Virgo. That is my moon sign. That is where I want to be, what I want to feel. I want to get in that grounded, dreamlike space where the sun is in Pisces, the watery energy, the last of the astrological wheel. And with the moon grounded in Virgo, we get really just juicy depth is what I like to think of it. So today we're going to be looking at the full moon in Virgo, as always, using my lovely tarot cards to guide us. We have the Morgan Greer Tarot, we have the Luminous Void Tarot, and the Way Home Tarot, which is really fantastic. Still wanting to do a review on this deck. It's really fucking awesome. It's a great, beautiful deck. Highly recommend. But with that said, let's get into it. I think I'm actually going to mix up, do Morgan Greer first, then Way Home, and lastly, the Luminous Void. But with that said, I want to explain first that we are going to be talking about Pisces through the tarot as the moon, since that is the connection astrologically, and of course Virgo is the Hermit. Those are our two archetypes that we're going to be talking about, and let's just dive into it right away since you have these two cards. So, Pisces season. Pisces is a big, let's talk about Pisces season first before we talk about the moon being in Virgo. So Pisces is represented by the moon, which you might find interesting that the moon is not actually represented in tarot by the moon card. That card, the ruling card of the moon in tarot, the kind of connection there is actually the High Priestess. So if you're looking to connect to a card specifically around moon work and kind of doing some moon worship, I'll get into a video about planetary worship and what that can look like in the future. But if you're looking to connect to the moon through the tarot, I would start there with our beautiful, lovely friend, the High Priestess. But with that said, Pisces season is the moon, and this is the Morgan Greer, so it's a pretty classic interpretation of this card. And you'll notice two dogs howling at the moon, two towers, a road that leads up to the moon, and of course we have this little crawdad. Some people connect that to Cancer, and that's just not the case. The crayfish or the crawfish, however you pronounce that, I've heard many different ways, is a delicious little mud bug, but it is also not a crab. It's way more related to a shrimp. So this connection, all of these animals kind of lined up, I like to think of this as a reminder that Pisces is really a good season to get connected to our animal instincts. And that means getting into our intuition. Our instincts can be seen as our intuition that can guide us down the road, right? We're being illuminated by this full moon in the picture. Now, a new moon, the full moon that's coming up, is in Virgo, which if you don't know, I'm going to remind you, anytime we are in the sign, a sign, the full moon always happens in the sign that's in opposition to that sign. So Pisces on the astrological wheel is in opposition to Virgo. They are similar. Or the way that I like to put it is these are two signs that have the same moral systems or the same value systems, but very different ways of pursuing those things. So they might have similar interests or similar causes that they fight for, but the way that they fight for those things are like opposing. So ultimately they are very similar, but very different in their methodology. And that brings us to the Hermit. So what I want to kind of hone in on between these two cards, the Hermit being Virgo, is we see this connection between two types, these two lights, these two illuminators. And we could almost imagine the Hermit going on this road, slowly taking their time. The Hermit reminds us that our work must be done right, not quickly. Slow and steady wins the race is kind of the word that I go back to with the Hermit. The Hermit also reminds us that a lot of our work for healing requires a lot of reflection. And once we find our illumination, beep, 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 that little guy, we're able to know where we're going. We're able to illuminate the road ahead. So whereas Pisces can be a lot of heady stuff and like kind of going through the depths of the waters of our subconscious, the Hermit goes, yes, but it has to be grounded in something real, in something physical and tangible. And that tangibility looks different for all of us. So this full moon, of course, like any season, this full moon might be coming to us to remind us to slow down and ground what we have learned in Pisces season. I'm looking at my calendar. The spring equinox, where the sun enters Aries, is on the 20th. So this is very close to that equinox. It could almost be seen as a reminder to catalyze or crystallize what we have learned wandering down this path and following our subconscious. That can be seen as the moon. The moon is very subconscious. And what we have learned in this journey, and how do we take it forward in a way that illuminates our path into spring, into Aries season, when we embrace that fire, that spark of life, that's Aries. So let's talk about the Way Home Tarot next and what we see there. What I love about the Way Home Tarot is that this is a deck that uses almost no people. I mean, there are like figures and forms, but you don't actually see like actual drawings of faces of people and all that. So our first is the moon. Again, the moon is present, but we have the water element there. Again, the water element's very important in this card to me, because the water element reminds us that this journey is within the mind. It's within the emotional landscape. It's within our It's within the caverns of our heart that we are maneuvering. And some of that means shadow work. We literally see this one, it's very similar to this. We have the two dogs that are howling at the moon, but in this one, we have the physical and we have the shadow self. And this one also still has that little crawdad, which I'm such a fan of. The crawdad is coming out of the shadow. And so when we're talking about subconscious work, when we're talking about our inner work, a lot of that is like beneath the surface, right? I go by Subnormal Child as my artist name. Subnormal Child, we're discussing like we're dealing with our child self, our subconscious self. So with Pisces season, this invitation is there to really embrace and illuminate those shadows of ourselves, because we're dealing with the depths of our soul before we go back to start over this whole process of the astrological wheel. Some people that I know who are into astrology don't even really celebrate the new year because the astrological wheel is not done yet. We don't really start over in that sense until the 20th, the spring equinox for Aries season. So we're seeing this illumination of the shadow and seeing what can be emerged, what can we learn by integrating these parts of ourselves. But here's the physical work. Once again, Virgo is here to remind us that this work is both metaphysical and physical. So we see here in the Way Home Tarot, this interpretation shows us a bear hibernating, which makes sense to me. I love this interpretation. This, the hermit on the snowy mountaintops is doing the work, is slow and steady, going through, being careful. He's an old guy. He's an old person. He's not trying to fall down that mountain. And so in this interpretation, there's this almost idea that even illuminates off of that, kind of evolves off of that rather, where it is this little bear who is taking its time, settling and conserving its energy until winter is over. And what I love is that there's a little firefly right there. So the light is still there. The illumination is still there. The illumination for integration. So once again, this full moon, how are we integrating our shadow? How are we integrating what we learned in Pisces season, in the subconscious watery time, that we can bring tangible? And the bear reminds us that that means taking it slow. Sometimes that means not being active because we have to conserve our resources. Virgo is very particular. Virgo is very physical because it is also an earth sign. Earth and water are great balances of each other. And with this idea, they can also be incredibly nourishing to one another. So these are the two visuals that we get from the Way Home Tarot. I really love this one for the moon, and I really love this one for the hermit, because I really think it's important connecting to these animal figures when it comes to these emotions, these changes, these shifts in the world that we're experiencing. We have to integrate the shadow, but sometimes that means also taking time to slow down. So the full moon in Virgo might be a time to really take up space in a way that we can just feel grounded and illuminating what is best for us. So what might be really supportive for you is a lot of journaling that day, going outside for a walk to kind of just get your mind and your body connected to earth. Having that space to kind of move through the waters, but do it grounded. And of course, that's going to be on a Friday. So maybe not taking that day as a self-care day, self-care being where you are nourishing yourself in whatever way that really feels supportive. But let's close this out with the Luminous Void Tarot. So this is a really simple but really beautiful representation. We have the full moon once again, and we see the road ahead, which looks watery. we are being illuminated by the fullness of this full moon to really travel where we are following our heart's intuition. I've talked about the moon quite a bit in past videos. You can definitely look at those and at the end when they start to pop up. The moon is a really powerful card talking about our intuition and really listening to our subconscious. So the road ahead is the road we must follow. It's not straight, it's windy. This is a not easy journey into our subconscious. This is like real fucking work. The Hermit in this card is really beautiful because, once again, it's kind of a classic interpretation, which I, of course, really love. But the colorful shawl on this person reminds us that this doesn't have to be all serious. That the work that we can do for ourselves that illuminates our way forward, that Virgo-ness of like honing in and staying on the path with our own intuition. Moon is intuition. They both Pisces and Virgo highly tapped into intuition, but in very different ways. This doesn't have to be a doom and gloom scenario. This doesn't have to be so heavy like this one is, or as old guy, slow guy energy that this is. It can be playful. What nourishes us and what allows us to illuminate the path is not universally something like suffering. That's not exactly what we want to go for. We want to find even the joy we can see on this person's face. It's like a soft smile. So being that beacon of light in our communities, or even just for ourselves, in whatever way is most authentic, means that we're not going to just enter into this full moon in Virgo like, I have to do it this way. No, we can really find multiple paths that lead us where we need to go. The path is windy, the path is long. Why be so serious the whole time? Illuminate your path with joy and light. So that is my takeaways for this full moon. I hope you found that supportive. As always, check out the links down below for my Pluto return. Happy Pluto return. And for all other things, including my Patreon, which if you would like to join, where art is a spiritual practice and art is an intuitive healer, definitely check that out. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok at SubnormalChild, where you can find all that content. But either way, friends, all the links coming up around me, check them out, and have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye, friends.